This is one of the saddest moments in video game history. A character we came to know and trust is about to die. But in this series, there are even darker moments. This is the story of the Van der Linde gang, a group of outlaws and gunslingers who face their fate one by one as karma catches up to them. Some are even heartbreaking. Our journey begins with the Blackwater Massacre, a ferry carrying $150,000 in bank money, and Dutch saw an opportunity he couldn't resist. A brutal gunfight erupted, sparking a chain of events that would leave scars for years to come. The botched robbery led to the gang making a desperate escape to the mining town of Coulter, hoping to evade the law. Jenny Kirk was wounded in the crossfire. Her injuries were too much. Another member, Davey, took damage. Despite Tilly and Abigail's efforts to save him, his injuries were too severe.
Davey's dead.
And he passed away shortly after the group arrived in Coulter.
I loved Davey.
But this was nothing compared to the shock that was about to come, because Arthur meets up with Micah, Bill and Sean in Rhodes for what should be a simple job. But something feels off. Arthur can't shake a funny feeling about the whole setup.
Can we trust them?
Can we trust anyone?
Yeah. Let's just see what they say.
Before Arthur can say a word, the trap is sprung.
They were saying the Catherine Braithwaite.
Hey, hold up. This don't feel right.
Now it don't feel right. I could have told.
Shots are fired, and in a heartbeat, Sean is gone. As the dust settles, an eerie silence fills the street. Arthur can't shake the feeling that they were set up and would remember Sean as a little brother.
He was like an annoying little brother to me. What fun we had riding together.
This was an unexpected death that happened out the blue. However, it's this death that sends shockwaves through the camp, because not long after, Karen is captured by the O'Driscolls, and they show no mercy. In a brutal display of vengeance, they decapitate him and send his corpse back to Shady Bow.
Make him change.
Very funny. What is that?
He arrives on horseback, but tied in a haunting pose, his head resting in his own hands. The gruesome sight stuns everyone.
Everybody take cover! O'Driscoll boys are coming!
And as if that horror wasn't enough, the O'Driscoll boys launch an ambush, catching the gang in a fierce gunfight. When the dust settles and the O'Driscolls are finally driven back, Dutch and the others begin cleaning up the carnage. As they gather themselves, Dutch orders Reverend Swanson to bury him, somewhere close, but not too close.
Mr. Swanson, would you take this boy and bury him someplace near, but not too near?
Of course. Charles, help me with the body.
We need to get this place cleaned up. Mr. Pearson, Miss Grimshaw.
Already taking care of it. Come on now, work!
Karen got brutalized, a truly upsetting death.
Shall we?
Yep.
But it's these next two deaths is when everything starts to go downhill. Because in a desperate bid to fund their escape to Tahiti, the gang prepares for one final job, and that is robbing the Lemoyne National Bank in Saint Denis.
Soon as we get out, load everything onto the wagon here.
I love that, Hosea!
Things start smoothly, but their plans are shattered once the Pinkertons arrive. Agent Milton captures Hosea and holds him hostage. Then, the unthinkable happens.
You can always cut a deal!
I've given you enough chances.
Come on!
No! God damn it!
A fierce gunfight erupts between the gang and the Pinkertons. If you thought the Hosea death was shocking, you're in for something else. The massive explosion creates a path to the rooftop, but it proves to be costly. because on the roof,
What you think?
I reckon me and Lenny try and find a way across the roof, see if you'll cover us.
Sure, go on.
Lenny is fatally shot during the chaos.
Lenny, he's dead.
Oh, God, no! There's nothing we can do. We gotta keep moving.
When Hosea and Lenny died, the gang was finished. Hosea was the voice of reason, and Lenny was the future. There was no way out of the disaster after this. It's a grim departure for both of these pivotal characters, but for now, the gang clings to hope that freedom still lies just over the horizon. Having issues at their other camp, Dutch makes a decision to move the camp north to Beaver Hollow, and as the gang settles into their new camp, Uncle returns, dragging along a drunken Molly. Clearly distressed, she makes a shocking claim.
Spit in your eye. I did. I told them.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I told them and I tell them again. Now I've got God's ear.
You told who? What?
Mr. Milton and Mr. Ross about the bank robbery, and I wanted them to kill you.
You did what?
Revealing to have snitched on the gang to the Pinkertons before the Saint Denis job, and even taunts Dutch with her confession. Tensions rise as Arthur and Dutch argue over what to do with her, but before any decision can be made, Susan steps in.
So big now. Are we, Your Majesty?
You...
She knew the rules, Arthur. What the hell is wrong with you? Mr. Pearson, Mr. Williams.
Ending the debate with a blast to Molly's stomach. She coldly orders Bill and Pearson to burn the body, leaving the gang stunned and silent as they try to process what they had just witnessed. Shortly after a train robbery, they encounter Tilly.
They came and took Abigail. I said, Jack, we hid, but they took Abigail.
Who did?
Agent Milton and his men took her to Van Horn.
Micah persuades Dutch to abandon her, leaving Arthur frustrated by Dutch's indifference.
Come on, Arthur. Let's go get her. You and me's all we need.
On the way to Van Horn, Arthur confides in Sadie, disgusted by how far Dutch and the gang have fallen and remembering the friends they've lost.
John, Hosea, Mac, Davy, Jenny, Sean, Lenny. We have to put an end to this.
Upon arrival to Van Horn, Arthur fights his way through the Pinkertons, only for Milton to reveal a shocking truth. Micah has been a mole for the Pinkertons all along.
Quite so many scruples. Old Micah Bell.
Micah? You mean Molly?
Molly O'Shea. Sweated her a couple of times, never talked a word, had to let her go. Micah Bell. We picked him up when you boys came back from the Caribbean, and he's been a good boy ever since.
You're still a yapping dog, Mr. Milton.
During the ride back, Arthur tells the two that he plans to confront the gang and expose Micah. He sends them ahead to Copperhead Landing to reunite with Jack. And as he arrives to find the remaining members packing up, he reveals to everyone that Micah is the traitor.
Seems old Micah was pretty close with Milton.
What the hell are you talking about, cowpoke?
You talked.
Micah furiously denies it, while Dutch stands confused. Arthur urges the gang to pick a side, and Mrs. Grimshaw steps forward and sides with him. She raises her shotgun and orders Micah to back down.
Be quiet. You live in the clouds.
No, you be quiet, Mr. Bell, and put down your gun.
There's Pinkertons coming fast.
Now!
Javier suddenly warns them that the Pinkertons are closing in, and by taking advantage of the distraction, Micah turns his gun on Susan, killing her instantly.
And who is betraying me?
But the chaos isn't over yet, because as Dutch draws his revolvers, he demands loyalty from the gang, asking who is with him and who is betraying him. Most of the gang sides with Dutch and Micah, leaving Arthur and John outnumbered. However, Agent Ross and his Pinkerton squad storm the camp, forcing the gang to scatter in all directions. In a brief moment of rest, Arthur reassures John that his family is safe and reveals that Micah was the rat who betrayed them. They get on their horses and race through the woods, with Dutch and others in pursuit. Eventually, both horses are shot. This is where it gets spine-chilling, as Arthur says a silent goodbye to his loyal horse.
Give me a second.
Come on! Push, Arthur!
Thank you.
Arthur!
As they cross through the mountains, a weak Arthur urges John to escape safely, giving him his hat and satchel. They fend off more Pinkertons, and Arthur is tackled by Micah.
I got you now, Black Lung! You rat! You rat!
Dutch intervenes, stepping on Arthur's hand and leaving both Arthur and Micah behind as he walks away in silence.
It's over. He's a rat. You know it, and I know it.
As Dutch leaves, Micah walks away too. He then crawls to the edge of a cliff and watches one last sunrise. This is truly one of the most heartbreaking events in the series. The story is picked up in a few years. During this time, John works as a farmer to support himself and his family. He links up with Charles and Sadie.
I found him. I found Micah.
No.
To avenge Arthur's death, the gang set out to find the person responsible, Micah. They track down a friend and threaten him, who gives up the whereabouts of Micah. The trio head towards Mount Hagen, beginning their ascent when a sniper's bullet hits Charles in the shoulder. As they press forward, John comes face to face with Micah.
Hello, Scarface. Did you miss me?
Not much.
Been a few years.
Then something unexpected happens.
Hello, son. Mrs. Adler. It's been quite a while.
Dutch appears out of the blue, looking like a depressed Santa Claus. But this is where things become even more tense. Sadie loses concentration for a split second, and the three are locked in a Mexican standoff.
Arthur saved my life. More than once.
Arthur's been dead a long time. This is a new century.
After a long pause, Dutch makes his choice. He fires a shot straight into Micah's chest.
You shot me. You shot me pretty good.
Leaving Micah stunned and furious. Dutch turns and silently walks away, disappearing into the mountains. After all that has happened, Dutch walks away with no money and no friends. Inside the cabin, John discovers a small fortune in money and gold. Most likely, the stash from the Blackwater ferry all those years ago. The trio ride back to Beach's Hope, and John reassures Abigail that it's now over. Charles and Sadie depart, heading off on their own paths, never to be seen again. Things are set to drastically change, because by 1911, Javier has become a hitman and enjoys the protection of the Mexican army. John finds Javier's location, and during an attack on the fort, he finds Javier and holds him at gunpoint in a tense standoff.
It's been a long time.
Javier tries to bargain, suggesting that he could lead John to Bill and Dutch, who he claims is in Colombia.
And Dutch is in Colombia. I can take you straight to him.
Realizing that there's no escape, Javier makes a desperate move.
You expect me to care about you?
You got it all wrong, brother. I've always loved you. Even now.
Javier's story ends in a tragedy, a final chapter in a life once filled with loyalty and friendship. But John's mission wasn't over yet. And after eliminating Javier, he had his sights set for Bill. During an assault on Colonel Allende's villa, he and Bill make a desperate escape in an armored stagecoach.
Vámonos! ¡Date prisa, cabrón!
John gives chase, battling through the many bodyguards until it grinds to a halt. In an ultimate act of betrayal, Linde shoves Bill out, offering up his ally's life to save his own.
Esta noche duermo en tu casa. ¡No, let me go! ¡A la mierda!
With Javier and Bill eliminated, there was one target left. John mounts his horse and sets off with Ross and the US Army.
You! Blow that gate open! Move, soldier!
When they arrive, the army blasts open the fort's gate, and John moves in on foot. Waves of enemies rush forward in defense. After clearing the village, John proceeds to the checkpoint, where an officer directs his men to plant charges on the door.
They'll plant charges at the gate. You and I'll provide the cover fire.
Looks like it's me and you, John. You should have stayed at home.
Forced to abandon his weapon, Dutch retreats.
You'll never take me alive, John.
And John gives chase. He follows Dutch up the ramp, climbing stairs and ladders, until he corners him at the top of a high cliff.
We gotta stop meeting like this.
With nowhere left to run, Dutch turns to face John.
I got a plan, John.
You always got a plan, Dutch.
This is a good one. When I'm gone, they'll just find another monster. They have to. Because they have to justify their wages.
That's their business.
Our time has passed, John.
With those last words, Dutch lets himself fall, vanishing into the depths below. He no longer had a plan. The leader of the Vanderlyn gang was now dead. Soon after, the US Army soldiers launch an assault on the ranch Beecher's Hope. Uncle rushes to warn John, giving them just enough time to mount a defense.
Come on! You can't stay out here!
As the soldiers close in, Uncle stands beside John, fighting back with everything he's got.
Oh, look how many there are! They're gonna kill us, aren't they?
No, I ain't gonna let that happen.
Amid the battle, Uncle is struck in the chest and collapses to the ground. Barely able to breathe, Uncle urges them to escape before taking his last breath.
Ain't time, John. I ain't gonna make it off this porch anyhow. Don't worry about me. Just get him out of here.
No! Uncle, please! Oh my God! They killed him!
Come on, son! Ain't nothing we can do for him now!
A remarkable moment of bravery for a character which is often overlooked.
We're leaving the farm. I'll watch from the silo. You two go to the barn. Get the horses ready.
John!
I'll meet you there.
Another wave of soldiers approach the land, and amongst the chaos, John hurries to the barn, where he finds Jack and Abigail. It's at this point where John knows that there's no running from his past, and quietly comes to terms with this. He helps them onto a horse, urging them to ride and never look back.
You keep riding and don't look back. And don't be worried about me, you hear? Now get going.
You stay out of trouble, John.
Ain't no trouble, Abigail. Ain't no trouble.
This would be the last time that they see each other alive. They disappear out the back of the barn, leaving John to face his fate alone. He pauses, lowers his head as he takes a deep breath, then pushes the doors wide open. John collapses onto his back, his gaze drifting to the sky. With one last labored breath, he dies, sacrificing himself so his family can live in peace. And at last, he's found his redemption. Abigail hears gunfire echoing through the valley and tells Jack to turn back. When they arrive, they find John's lifeless body lying there, Overcome with grief, Abigail cradles her husband. In the days that follow, Jack and Abigail bury John on the property. As the scene fades, the same grave appears years later, and as the camera pulls back, it reveals Abigail's grave beside John's.